Greetings, I'm Mark with Unlimited Story, and in this video, I am interviewing Callie Chase. Who is Callie Chase? She is a writer, editor, and writing instructor. She's been doing that for over a decade, but her big claim to fame is actually her work on Bug, which is her like breakout debut story that is on Kindle Vella. It's been in the top 25 basically since it came out. She's cranking out 3 episodes a week. It's very, very, very impressive. So we're going to be getting right into it. So stick around. So let's get into it and talk about Bug. And we'll start out with your characters. Your main ones are Bug and Drew. What's your favorite thing about them? Both of them.
Well, Bee and Drew, I think for me, like they represent the two reasons to survive anything. So, like writing a dystopian or like zombie sort of story. Bee is the heart character, which is
Mm-hmm.
why the series is kind of like named for her. Bug, that's her nickname.
Mm-hmm.
But then Drew is like, she is so practical and so driven and so in her head. And she actually like tries to push aside emotional issues to make good decisions,
Mm-hmm.
mostly because she's been like so traumatized in her past, like very little of which has actually come out, so far in the series about
Mm-hmm.
that. But so I think that's why I love them both because they both sort of face their traumas in different ways. One with a lot of like vulnerability and weakness and just always putting it out there like, I'm not strong, I'm not this. And then the other one that's like, oh my God, give me like a coat hanger and I will kill you. Like it's just the two sides that I think are so interesting and complicated, but they kind of all spring from the same sorts of things.
Okay. Okay. And it's interesting because you're getting these two different perspectives of these very unique characters, and people are seeing how one survives and the other one is able to survive. And neither is right or wrong. Well, depending on your how you view it, right?
Right, right.
Okay. What are your goals for those two characters?
Well, like when I started the series, I wanted them both to have an arc that brought them into a less extreme place. So B is very weak. And whenever I kind of get myself confused about like, okay, how should this scene run? Who is B? Like I remind myself, like she's the heart character and she's weak. So she may not always seem weak on the page, but for me in my head, I'm sort of thinking like, I want to take her first moment in this scene and give her something that she has to face so that she
Mm-hmm.
either reinforces what we know about her, which is like she's kind of lost and is going to follow other people.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of the series, I hope she really grows into somebody who she's not going to become true. Like that's not
Mm-hmm.
how that's going to go, where people identity, but she's so one dimensionally like lost. She gets to have more as a result of all this. And the same thing with Drew. Like Drew is going to be forced through everything that happens to really face the fact that like she is so hard and she looks away from things that are hard to see. And by the end, there's I already had this ending scene planned, so I don't want to spoil it because I'm afraid I'm going to say too much. But like
Don't
Drew is
then
going to
don't.
have to
Okay.
Drew changes. No, that's my hope for both of them is that they
Okay.
like grow and change, but they don't fundamentally become different people, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Well, and that's to be expected, right? We want our characters to go from point A to point B. Otherwise, they're like, oh, I'm just keep getting, the same thing. So that's good,
Yeah.
of course. Um, okay. So your book takes place in LA. You're in LA. There's a lot of
Yeah.
LA references and so on. Would you say I probably can already answer this, but would you say this book is made for people in LA? Like, are they going to enjoy it that much more
Oh.
than other people? Because they can just be like, oh, yes, right there. I know, what are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I don't think so. Like that was one thing that just knowing anything about like publishing, like I think people enjoy reading about cities where not
Mhm.
everybody in the world lives.
Mhm.
And so I feel like if you live here, I hope there's some authenticity that might give you that like grin where you're like, oh, it's cool. But honestly, I think a lot of people are interested in cities like Chicago, Denver, New York, Minneapolis. I mean, it's not even just LA. So I think hopefully instead of just focusing on things that people would expect from LA, even people who aren't here will be like, oh, that's unusual or interesting, or it's not what I would have expected LA to be, which is
Mhm.
kind of the experience I had moving here from the Midwest. So
Mhm.
we'll see. I don't know. So far, I'm enjoying at least writing it and making it as authentic to what my experience here has been.
And do you go to the locations when you're writing them, or I'm sure you do like some level of research, right?
Tons. And actually, most of the locations I've written about so far, I've already been to so many times that I don't have to revisit it. But I also do have an actual bug map on my computer that I've saved. And then I use Google Earth all the time just to like, because, I can't leave the house that often.
Mm-hmm.
So go in there and like do the street view and remind myself, like, oh, yeah, this is what like a storefront that's really aged and cracked in this neighborhood looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
you can spend a lot of time, like, or I'll say waste a lot of time doing that kind of research. But yeah, I've tried to make it super authentic. Even the travel times and like the timestamps of where we're at in the day,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely a little bit of a fudge factor, but at least it doesn't feel like what you can't get from Griffith Park to,
Mm-hmm.
Eagle Rock in
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
20 minutes. If there's no traffic, you might. So,
Well, yeah, and now there's less traffic, but now there's a new type of traffic, so that all
right,
comes into play. All right, so
right, right.
I love this because zombies are all the rage within the last I want to say 10 years. And I don't want to say my peeves, but one thing I'm always very very interested in is the kill mechanic for zombies. So what was your deciding factor for your kill mechanic? And please explain it out for people who haven't read it.
Yeah. So I kind of didn't want to reinvent the wheel for people because that's one thing with world building and creating a zombie series. Like the question is like what makes mine unique, original, or different. And I thought, don't mess with a good thing. Like people want their zombies and they're either going to be like the slow ones or the fast ones or exactly kind of what you expect. So that kill mechanic of like you've got to stake them in the head, I just figured was the easiest thing. You
Mhm,
don't have to educate the reader. They just hit
mhm.
the ground running knowing that, okay, I see it. So I kind of already know how that's going to work.
Okay.
So that's the thing. Also, though, to be fair, because I am not a weapons person, like I've read really super military zombie fiction and
Mhm,
sort of what I would call like mine, which is more layman's,
mhm,
there literally are, 60, I think right now I'm like 64 episodes published. And there's not a lot of like use of guns. They're there with certain characters, but like
mhm,
most of them are just, they're running around, they're hitting them with things, that kind of thing.
mhm,
Baseball
mhm,
bats
mhm,
still,
mhm, mhm.
early days. Don't mess with a good thing. Do what people know works.
So, and here's the other thing to kind of piggyback off that. Your tags are dystopian and paranormal for Bug.
Yeah.
So, do you classify these zombies as the paranormal ones, like ritual, spiritual creature, or are they more the scientific-y, virus? Or is that not yet been determined? Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, no, I don't mind at all because
Okay.
I did figure that out
Okay.
before I even started because
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's what people always want to know, like why does the power go out? How does this happen? How is it
Mm-hmm.
transmitted? There's actually a hint in episode 1 and it's so
Okay.
subtle, so probably no one will ever get it. And at the rate that I'm writing these episodes,
Mm-hmm.
like who knows if anyone will ever see the mechanism and how it actually happened. But they're scientific zombies, so they're not like spiritual
Okay.
ones. Something actually happened and turned people this way, unfortunately. Or
You,
fortunately,
you're
it's
gonna
working
make
out for
you're gonna make me reread that first episode now. 'Cause
it's
now I feel
so
like I lost it. I was like, I read that. I thought I read it pretty good. Okay.
you
All right.
I'm sure you did, Mark. I'm sure you're so great, but it's just like right there.
It's like one sentence.
Do you want to hit? It really is. It's not a bug. Like it's not the bugs that,
Hmm.
like you
Yeah. Yeah.
feel
Mhm.
it's not that. It's something else. And there's so many animals in this series. So that's another
I'm
hint.
not even gonna guess, but I'll talk to you after we're done recording.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome.
What is something you won't put in this story? Like you're writing all this stuff, there's crazy things happening all over LA. What's one thing you're like, I am definitely not going this way, this direction?
Yeah. So I am never gonna write about sort of people being like violated or
Mm-hmm.
victimized like because of gender or sexuality or like rape like we're
Mm-hmm.
it's that's never going to happen like as
Okay.
realistic as certain things might be
Mm-hmm.
person versus person in like these extreme situations that for me is like there's plenty of story to tell without going there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you say like, okay, this is my goal, I'm going to write about people trying to survive zombie apocalypse. You're like, this stuff does happen, but it's not something I really want to focus on with this story. I get it totally.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
if you had to wrap Bug up next week, I said this is your last episode. You
Oh,
got because you're doing 3 a week, right? Still,
yeah, Yeah, still.
You monster. Anyway, sorry. If you had to wrap it up, you got your 3 episodes. What are you gonna do? You got to cut the cord right now.
Oh, there's so much to do. I think the first thing I would have to do is show, like, this is not a spoiler because it's in the synopsis, like B does get bit. So I'd have to put that, I'd have to have that happen real quick and then show you what happens after. Which would be sad. I need lots more time, but that's what would happen. She would get bit and we'd move on into how and if there's any hope for recovery after.
All right.
After that.
All right. So now I'm done prying, trying to get all this sweet info out of you. So a lot of my viewers are authors just like you on KV, and they would love to see like your level of success, not only just writing 3 episodes a week, because don't get me wrong, I would love to be able to do that too. But you've stayed up on within the top 25-ish pretty much the whole time. How do you think you've done it? What do you do personally that you think is really helping out with that?
I think that is an awesome question. And I hope I have valuable insights because, to be fair, like, I didn't launch Bug with any expectations. I had no readers, no mailing list. And so I really honestly had well, I guess that's the place to start, is I really did have goals and a plan for myself so that if, for example, just to save honestly my heart, if I got through like the first 3 or 4 months and I only had like 150 reads, I was like, I just have to know what success looks like to me. And so when when Vella launched and Bug started to get reads more quickly, I'm hoping it was a combination of like I'll say plan, but again, I had a marketing person that I was working with from before launch, because I did have this as a novel before that I was never able to publish. It was totally incomplete and honestly didn't quite work. It only had B and Drew's POVs, and none of the characters except for 2 who are in it now are actually even in the first version that was the novel. So it's completely expanded. But not to get off track from the question of what have I done? So I definitely had a plan that involved marketing, everything. And I don't think of marketing as just like advertising. I think of it as like my cover. Like for me, nailing the cover was the most important thing. And that was my first big like budget point where I'm like, what am I going to spend money on? It's the visual representation of that little circle so people know what to expect when they see it. I was really late to social media. Like I didn't really post too much on Instagram. I never post on Twitter really, or I don't have TikTok for Bug or Callie Chase or anything. So figuring out for me, like, okay, what's the most important priority? Is it getting the episodes out? Because I honestly think even early on, that was a big key, is just my episodes were a little bit on the longer side, like almost many of them in the early, like the first 40 were up to 3,000 or 3,200 words, which is pretty long. It's like 10 to 12 pages.
It's longer than the average for sure. Most people are aiming for like that sweet 1,500-ish area.
Which I tried. I was like, when I was thinking about breaking up the book, I was like, yes, 1,500 words. That's like manageable. And then you really sit down to write a scene where like a lot of stuff is happening, especially with all these characters. And it just didn't feel like enough room for me to really get it in. So if I were giving pure advice to people like really wanting to find success on Vella, I would say it's a number of things. Like obviously have a plan for your series, have a plan for your brand, know what you like to do, know what you can spend money on if you can. It might be your cover, it might be advertising, it might be you just are a person who engages constantly on social media, and that helps you find your readers, or sort of gain traction that way. But for me, it was really a combination of all of those things. But I think my first energy always goes into, and this was something that I talked about too with my marketing person, is if you don't post on Instagram for 2 weeks, it doesn't matter as long as you're getting those 3 episodes. So the writing, honestly, for me comes first.
Content first.
And I hope, and that's, yeah, and not to say that there aren't a million great stories. There are tons of great stories. It's a combination of, I think, the volume. You know what I mean? Like, is everyone publishing as much as they can? Are they writing it with those hooks to like bring people back? And again, there's so much we can't control, but those are the things I tried to do. And I hope, and I think have been working so far. But I also reevaluate all the time. So, I do have some ads for Bug on Facebook, and
Mm.
they ebb and flow with how much they cost, whether or not I know what they're doing entirely. I don't know, whether or not with the help I have from marketing, I know what they're
Mm.
doing. But again, writing was first for me, and I'm hopeful that if I just keep doing that, that people will come back and keep
Okay.
reading it. But I don't think there's any one solution for anybody, because I know people can't all write, necessarily 10,000 words a week, and that should be okay. Like if you're a 1,500 word a week writer, then maybe 2 episodes is like your stretch goal, and you do it, and that's
Mm.
great.
Mm. Well, and it's all based on how much time you have, right? Like if you're writing full time,
Yeah.
yes, okay, people can expect a certain amount to be done every week. And other people are just like, well, this is what I can do, and that's fine too. Because some people write
Exactly.
once a month, and they'll have a big old 6,000 word episode waiting for you, which that's still quite a bit in my opinion.
Yeah, and there are people that release like daily or 5 times. Like that's amazing. That's amazing.
I have yet to see
It's one
that,
of That's
but
the good
sounds
thing about
impressive.
Vella, though. I
Mhm.
know, right? I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Let's see here. What? Well, actually, you answered like 5 of my questions at once, so thank you. That made it a lot easier. What actually? Here's one though. What is it like being you? What is your day/week look like? Because again, you're writing 3 per week. So what's your life looking like?
Yeah, well, my schedule is I'm totally self-employed, so that's terrifying and hard. So a lot of the time I'm, you know, preparing client work or bidding for client work, whatever that is. I also teach, so there's grading and just stuff like that, curriculum design to do. So I kind of prioritize every day based on the things that I can't move around. So if I actually have to be live somewhere or client meetings or whatever, I work obviously around those. I also have to like get dressed and look more human than I might if I don't have to see anyone in a whole day. But the writing and the work part of it, I try to be in Bug every single day, even if it's just planning, because now, I've from the original book, which was about 68,000 words, way too short, but it wasn't working. I knew that. I've only been able to use about 15,000 words over like 6 episodes in what's on Velo right now. So I'm constantly thinking ahead of like, what is the next character going to be doing? How can I build like excitement and do something I haven't done yet before? And then I'm trying to write a little bit every day, but really and truly, I do kind of do it in bursts where I probably come up with an episode over 2 or 3 hours and really bang out that first draft, and then go back to 2, 3 days later, edit, revise,
Mm.
things like that. But the average day is just, it's all books, it's all writing, it's all craft. It just matters whether, which end of the pen or the keyboard I'm, writing it, editing it, teaching it.
Mm.
Or, a lot of time too, just planning things like for social media that for all these different accounts that I manage. And not all of it's very successful, honestly.
Mm.
Sometimes you just are like, yep, today I just want to do a quick post about this, and
Mm.
it's out. So but every day is, busy and fun. But that's part of the, great thing when you are self-employed, which was a
Mm.
very scary transition to make, but it's really fun because it almost doesn't feel like work. Turning it off is harder than turning it on.
Yeah, a lot of people who do this, like they make it their primary, is it's great,
Yeah,
and it's very freeing, right? All
it
right.
is. It is.
That actually wraps up for all my questions. So let me just ask you one more thing. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, Josh, just thanks so much for having me. I really enjoy talking to you about like books and craft and Vella, and thank you. So
Oh, you
fun.
bet. You bet. All right. And that's it for this video. If you guys want to stay afterwards, I have a bunch of questions that I asked Callie, and I don't know. I thought they were funny. So that's all. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
If you had one utensil, fork or spoon, what's it going to be?
Definitely fork.
Why?
Because you can do like fine things with it. You know what I mean? Like the points. Not
Like
that
you're
it ever
digging
get
through?
exactly. I
Okay.
only want one pea, so I really need the fork for that.
Okay. Okay. One you guys can only order one topping for your pizza. What's it going to be?
Basil. Just load. I know that sounds super creepy. Load it up with like
I wouldn't say
fresh
creepy,
basil or
but I'm just
basil.
like I've never heard anyone just say
basil this. So like
Basil
just
me.
crust to tomato sauce and then basil on top.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, because you are writing a, I don't want to say post-apoc, but dystopian, there are a few like very specific traits I feel that people need to have, and one of them is swimming. So, are you a swimmer?
You know what's horrifying? I
Mhm.
cannot swim. I no, I mean like, and I'm
Really?
obsessed. No, and I'm obsessed with mermaids. Like I have a massive mermaid swimming underwater tattoo.
Mhm.
Can't swim. It's literally like I would be the person who would like drown in the puddle in the zombie apocalypse because I can't swim. Can't even
So,
float. I'm
so you
sure I
have all
wouldn't.
these characters, and you're like, I would never survive this. Give me 5 minutes.
Oh no. I think that's why I had to write it. No, I guess I'd be like, nope. I'd be the one who would literally like sneeze and it'd be over.
It's so wild. All right. So you don't think you'd be able to survive. What traits do you have that you would say like, well, this will at least get me 10 more minutes out there?
Oh my gosh. I think I'm observant, like I would definitely, I'm the person who like hears something 3 million miles away and I'd be screaming already. So if that's a survival skill, like hearing and then screaming and running, that
All right.
that could get me 10 whole minutes, I'd hope.
Uh, if you could create a holiday, what would it be?
Oh, Friendship Day. I'm
Okay.
gonna sound like Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec, but like I think my friends are my family, so totally
Okay.
Friendship Day.
And when would you celebrate it?
I think it'd be really fun to celebrate it like before the whole family season. So I love the fall. So let's do like September after Labor
September.
Day before Halloween.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about to say once you hit Halloween, it's like you're just packed full of holidays.
You're too jam-packed. The friends are gonna get lost.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You have one superpower. What is it? Don't be like Superman where you got like a ton. You just get one.
Exactly. Okay, just one. Would like, oh man, because I don't want to be invisible or anything super creepy, but like flying. Because I mean, that would be a survival skill. Plus it'd just be fun. So let's go with
Yeah, it
flying.
would be flying. Okay, no problem. Pet peeve. What is it?
Oh man. I have so many. Do we have a whole show for that? I'm like, I must be
We'll
the
make a separate
most
video. All the
hard.
things that bother you. just
I
pick
know.
pick one. It can be your favorite pet peeve.
Okay. Okay. How about um people like really talking loud in public? Like they want, and maybe that's an LA thing too. Like whenever I go
Like
somewhere, it's like you
speakerphone
think people
stuff.
want to hear your conversation. Not even that, like they could be just talking to the person right across the way from them, like so freaking loud where you're like, no one's impressed. No one cares about your life. Like just let me just have this bagel and a little bit of peace. So loud talkers, maybe.
Okay, all right. And what is something about you that no one expects? Like you tell people this, and they are just like, no way.
Oh yeah, probably that I'm obsessed with zombies and I'm writing a zombie series. I'm very much like I don't know, like a happy, optimistic, like I love romance. That's like my big favorite genre. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I also like to talk about staking things in the head. So I think that's probably the one thing people wouldn't expect.
Okay, so is this people who know you or people who don't know you, or is it both?
Oh, it's definitely both. Like I still have family members who are like, "What are you doing? Why?" It doesn't make sense. Like I don't know. It's like you have these weird random, how like when you're young, you just something sticks with you. And like
Mhm.
for me, it was like A Wrinkle in Time, where you're like monsters and magic and time travel and all this bizarre stuff. But then it's not like I ever really lived that in my real life. Like I wasn't like a kid who's like super cool with nerd culture and
Mhm.
like I can't solve a Rubik's cube. I learned that
Mhm.
about myself recently, that there's like an actually a way to do it. I just look at it and I'm like, it's wizardry. No, I don't know. So I think like my love for horror and things like that, even people who know me really well are like,
It-
wouldn't have guessed, wouldn't have thought.
They're just caught completely by surprise, kind of thing. All right,
Yeah,
all right.
The Rubik's Cube thing they would know though. I can get lost in a parking garage. Another reason why I would not survive, anything sincerely dystopian.
And we'll get into this a bit later about dystopian because there's a lot of research that has to go into it, to write it pretty
Yeah.
factually. Like I have books over here too that are just like, okay, these are survival mechanics that people would use, and some of it's really surprising.
And that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing, and that's about it. Peace.